Hey, what's going on, guys? And I am back again today for another episode breakdown of Overlord Season 1. We just keep getting positive feedback from these videos, so I wanted to keep going ahead. And this week we are going to be covering Episode 3 of Season 1. I will say Episode 3 is one of my favorite episodes of Overlord Season 1. It's Einz's first interaction with New World inhabitants, and it's also his first conflict. Finally, the episode where we start learning more about the people that make up this new world that Einz has been transported to. So I was excited to get into this episode because it's also awesome in the light novel as well. So starting off, we have that first scene in Nazareth between Einz and Sebas, with Einz using the mirror of remote viewing. I mentioned this in my episode 1 breakdown, but in the light novel, there's actually been, up to this point, several cutaways, chapters that focus on Enri's point of view while the assault in the village is going on. We get basically Enri's perspective of when the Slain Theocracy soldiers, who are dressed as Baharu soldiers, are attacking Karn village. And in the anime, that scene we get with Einz observing the attack, there's a scene where we see a man attacking one of the soldiers, and he gets killed by them. In the light novel, that scene is a little more messed up because you get Enri's perspective when that's going on. So Enri's father basically attacks the soldiers in order to hold them off. Her mom gets cornered and she has to abandon her mom as well. So it's just Enri and Nemu are running away. A lot more detailed as to like what's going on and like what they're feeling at the time, which is interesting because the anime, didn't have any of that. So the major thing that's going on with Einz in this scene is him realizing what's going on with his emotions. It's dawning on him that he doesn't view them as like, oh, these are people dying. He sees it as like animals or like insects being like, killing each other or something. Like he realizes that he doesn't like view them as like actual people. He doesn't care about them. And it's not a hatred like Albedo has or like Shaltier has. It's just complete apathy, which is disturbing to Momonga, like in his internal dialogue. And in the light novel, he's actually like in denial about this whole thing. He doesn't really want to accept the fact that he's not human anymore. He's able to observe all this violence, and you get a little bit of that in the anime, but like in the light novel, it's clear that he's like kind of worried about his new mindset, moving forward. So then he's talking to Sebas, and Sebas makes a few comments, and this is where Einz starts thinking about Touch Me. And a little fun fact is that Sebas, who was created by Touch Me, is said to look exactly like Touch Me's real-world appearance. So Touch Me apparently is a middle-aged to older guy, and this is where we get a little flashback to Einz's early days of Yggdrasil. It was apparently common to PK grotesques, or heteromorphic races. They're called grotesques in the light novel. And Momonga was getting killed so much that he almost quit playing Yggdrasil just because he just kept getting PK'd. And then Touch Me came in and helped him out, and because Touch Me role played as the hero of justice, so saving someone in trouble is always the right thing to do, and that kind of stuck with Einz. And Touch Me was always like a big deal to Einz because Momonga viewed him as the strongest player in all of Yggdrasil, and there's good reasons for that. I won't get into everything about Touch Me, but Touch Me was basically like Einz's like top tier in the guild. So thinking about that, he decides to save Karn village and gates himself there. So in the anime and the light novel, we then switch over to Enri's perspective, but the scene is actually a little bit longer in the light novel. Enri and Nemu are running away from the Slain Theocracy soldiers. They're being chased down, and in the light novel, there's a lot of detail on how scared Enri is, and actually she even has like a quick thought of, you'd be able to get away if you drop Nemu, and she's just like horrified that she has that feeling, and like that's such like a visceral, real thing in the light novel. Like, it's that self-preservation instinct coming up that like we'll do anything to survive, like even abandon our loved ones. But like Enri's able to push that down, but she's like horrified that she even had that thought. And she puts up a fight in the light novel too. The Slain Theocracy soldiers catch up to her, and then Enri gives them the old 1-2 buckle my shoe. She actually breaks her hand by punching the guy's helmet, but she's able to punch it so hard that it basically does do, like, it hurts him. So it's a freaking helmet. So that kind of shows Enri's like physical strength, I guess, which kind of becomes a meme later on in Overlord. She was already like a pretty tough farm girl. She was able to punch a guy who's in armor so hard that he felt it, and she shattered her own hand by punching it so hard. She gives the old knuckle sandwich.
Give you one of these, and if you're lucky, you won't get one of these.
But eventually they get cornered, and luckily Einz shows up, making that grand entrance. Really, the scene is pretty much exactly the same in the light novel. We just get more information about the magic that is being cast in these scenes, all the spells that Einz casts. The light novel really breaks down the info about what they are in relative to Einz. So Einz uses Grasp Heart to kill the first slain Theocracy soldier. Apparently this is Einz's favorite spell. It's a 9th tier. It's called Ghost Magic. And Einz specializes in Ghost Magic. That's like his magic tree that he is stronger in. He gets boosts in Ghost Magic, so he wanted to try, one of his stronger spells out. This is all a test to him, to figure out how strong these people are. And that's the major thing that I don't think is communicated as well in the anime, is all of this is about finding out how strong people are in the new world, and also to see how his powers are working. So the spell works, and a lot of Einz's ghost magic spells have insta-death effects. And the light novel doesn't go too in-depth, but this is something I think I want to elaborate on. Einz's build wasn't it wasn't optimized for PvP. He had a role-playing build, as this evil overlord magic caster guy. So insta-death, if you're PvPing a person that is, close to your level, that isn't going to work. So pretty much all of his insta-death magic, is useless if he's fighting someone that is, almost as strong as him. So it's not like he's like a black mage or anything like that where it's all offensive magic. This is basically where he finds out that the insta-death stuff works in the new world, and that, reassures him. And so then he moves to the next guy, and this time he's like, okay, let's not do insta-death. Let's tone it down. I want to see, what's going on. And so he decides to use Dragon Lightning, which is a 5th tier spell, and he does no meta magic enhancements. And so he uses Dragon Lightning, and he knows that, electricity has a stronger effect on metal armor, but like in Yggdrasil, a lot of people basically, if they wore metal armor, they would like nullify the electric effect. So he uses the spell. He doesn't expect it to kill. And it does. And after that happens, Einz just can't believe it. He's like, wow, when I would go out grinding, I would pretty much use 8th tier spells and up only. Like, I would never even use 5th tier. 5th tier is basically worthless to Einz. And this is where Einz starts to realize, like, okay, I'm not nervous anymore. I think I went into this way too, much. But this is where Einz also discovers that his Summon Undead skill works differently in the new world. So he's discovering that some things are the same as Yggdrasil, but other things are different. This is all about testing. So he sends off the Death Knight, and then Albedo shows up. And something that I neglected to say in the first couple videos is that in the first chapter, actually, Albedo already has Ginnungagap at this point. In the anime, they cut out Ginnungagap. I don't know why. Albedo is always holding Ginnungagap when she's in Nazareth, in the prior chapters of Volume 1, which I thought was weird that we only get introduced to Ginnungagap in Season 4. That's the first time we see it. It's, shown pretty much almost immediately in the light novel, which was a little fact I overlooked in my earlier breakdowns. So Einz and Henry interact, and actually a little tidbit in the light novel that happens is that, everything's going on, and Einz talks to them, and actually Henry and Nemu, unfortunately, they piss themselves during this scene in the light novel. It's a little funny in the light novel because Einz just like, okay, I'm an adult, I can overlook this, I'm a businessman, I've overlooked things. He's then again thankful for his emotional suppression because he's kind of embarrassed, and he's just like, oh man, I can't believe that just happened. But he offers her the potion, and in the light novel we actually get more information as to what that potion is. So that potion's from Yggdrasil. It restores 50 HP. However, it has no effect on Einz. It actually has a negative effect on Einz. So the potion that Einz gives to Henry has a justice healing effect, but to undead like Einz, that has the opposite effect and is actually poisonous to him. But the reason he kept them was because not all the members of Einz Ulgon were undead. There were uses for them for him to have, just not for himself. So him giving those out is not really a big deal. Not to mention he has tons of them. And I guess one of the funnier things in this scene is like Einz realizing that like, okay, they're very scared of me, and my face, it's not going to be well received in this new world. That's how he makes that judgment just from this interaction with Henry and Nemu. So then we move on to the Death Knight killing the rest of the slain Theocracy soldiers. This scene plays out pretty much the same in the light novel. We get a little more detail as to the inner thoughts of that captain. Something that happens in the anime that isn't explained at all, but is in the light novel. We see that a person that the Death Knight has killed in the anime comes back to life as this zombie, and that's because the Death Knight actually has a skill that anyone that is killed as a Death Knight is resurrected as another minion. So basically, a Death Knight is an undead that can create more undead because of this skill. That's a little, it's kind of irrelevant, but I thought it was interesting. So then Einz shows up and meets the villagers of Karn. Now this is probably the biggest scene where it was cut down in the anime. In the light novel, the village chief and Einz have a very long talk, and they talk about money for a little while, but Einz is like, internally, he's freaking out because he's just like, I have no idea like how money works in this new world. I don't know what's going on. He's so worried about like, I don't want to, ask for too much, but I don't want to ask for too little. And so I'm trying to figure this out. They do show some of this in the anime, but it's just through a series of images really and some narration. But there's like an actual long conversation in the light novel about like Einz hashing out the deal with the village chief. And so we move on to discovering about the geography of the new world, which is really what Einz is after. He wasn't really after money. And one of the funny things that happens is common sense in this new world is something that he's concerned about, because he can pass off not knowing about like larger things, but as far as like how common sense rules work in the new world, like he says in the light novel, I can't just grab someone and ask me, tell me about common sense. Like that would just be insane. So that's something that's worrying Einz this whole time. And then another interesting thing that happens during this conversation is once Einz finds out about the countries, is that he decides he wants to become affiliated with one of the 3 countries that he found out about. Because Einz's mind is all geared towards finding other players. And he's thinking about, okay, what happens if I run into players and if they still have their humanity, if they think I'm evil, they're going to attack me. He says at base power, Nazareth could probably handle an assault from 30 level 100 players. Yeah, so the new world is fucked. But there's also like world items to consider, and he thought like, if he used some world items, it could take way more than that. So yeah, these guys are in deep shit. But that's just extra information we get in the light novel, is just more thinking about like how Einz wants to proceed. We do get some of that in the anime. We just get way more of it in the light novel. And actually there's one thing in the anime that I think is a mistake. Now when I rewatched this episode, I watched it dubbed, so I don't know if they say it in subbed, but it's definitely in the dub. They call Irantel in this scene the capital. Irantel is not the capital of Riestes Kingdom. The capital of the Riestes Kingdom is a city called Riestes. It's the royal capital. That's the city that was under attack at the end of season 4 of Overlord. They call Irantel the capital like several times in this scene in the anime, and it's never referred to as the capital in the light novel. It's just called a fortress city. So that was just a weird, I don't know why that happened, but that was just something I thought was neat. So then moving on again, we have a very short scene between Albedo and Einz, with Einz talking to Albedo about humans. And so Einz basically asks Albedo, what did you think of humans? In the anime, she comes across as very, very hostile. In the light novel, she's kind of more cheerful about the whole thing. I mean, she's definitely hateful towards humans. She views them as lower life forms. She says she's interested in seeing them, like in pain, but she's not as hateful. It doesn't seem like she's speaking as hatefully in the light novel. It's more of just like a sadistic tendency thing. I don't know. She's kind of laughing a little bit and giggling about the whole thing. So it's not like angry hateful. It's more of just like psychotic sadism, I guess you could say. But Einz basically forces her to say, hey, you got to treat the humans with respect. This isn't because Einz, particularly cares for humans, because like I said, he doesn't hate them, but he doesn't care about them at all. It's complete apathy for his plans to move forward and for his perceived safety, because he thinks if he just goes around indiscriminately killing humans, he's going to draw the attention of other potential players, and he could make enemies he doesn't want to make. He's worried about a player attack at this point. That's what he's trying to avoid by not antagonizing potential players that are human. That principle pretty much motivates a lot of his actions moving forward in later seasons, such as assaulting the other kingdoms, and we always have to have a justification and, you know, like saving the village. He was already thinking of his justification was, I'm saving it from these people that were attacking it. So he's already starting that mindset of we need to have justification for our actions that fuels things later on in the series. And so we have that final scene with Gazef showing up, and this scene is basically exactly the same in the anime. We do get a little more information on Gazef's troops. In the anime, actually kind of portrayed them incorrectly, apparently according to the light novel, because in the light novel, Einz describes them as they all have like custom gear. They all have different stuff on because they're an elite warrior troop. They're under Gazef's direct command. They all have like stuff that's custom to their own specialties, and I guess that's just a privilege that's afforded to them as an elite warrior troop under Gazef. But in the anime, they all kind of look like generic soldier guys. Einz described them as looking more like a group of mercenaries rather than soldiers. And then we get the alert that there are more soldiers sighted, which leads us into the next episode. So guys, a pretty cool episode of Overlord, and also a pretty cool part of the light novel. Some actual events going on. You know, the first two episodes were basically just setting the stage, showing us who our characters are in Nazareth, you know, showing Einz, you know, explaining the situation, what's going on. But this episode was the first episode where we actually get some interactions in the isekai, which is awesome, you know, and that's why this is like one of my favorite episodes of season 1, because it's Einz's first interaction, and it's just a cool arc with, you know, his first showings of OP-ness, I guess you could say, which are always fun to watch for, especially for an isekai degen like me. So guys, what did you think of this episode breakdown? Did you learn anything new? Leave your thoughts in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see an episode 4 breakdown, please like it to let me know. And if you aren't already, please subscribe to the channel. It helps me out more than you know, and it'll let you know when I post in the future. With that being said, I want to thank you all for watching to the very end of the video, and I will see you all next time. Bye!